When it comes to people's favorite Thomas episodes, I don't think any one fan will have the same picks as any other. And considering just how many episodes of Thomas and Friends are available, narrowing down just a few to definitively say are your top picks is hard enough. I've been thinking for a little while about my favorite Thomas episodes, and after a lot of parsing through and tough decisions, I think I've finally nailed down a solid 10 that I'd call my absolute favorite episodes of the show. So let's waste no more time and get started. The Runaway is an episode I have very fond memories of from childhood, which will be a running theme for a lot of my picks. What stands out to me about this episode is Thomas's journey. In a season filled with a lot of stories where Thomas has issues with someone, it's nice to see different sides of him here. Thomas starts out feeling sick and has to go to the works. Duck takes over his passenger trains and does a good job. Thomas is jealous when he comes back, but doesn't stay salty for too long, and doesn't even give Duck any lip. But then it turns out Thomas's handbrake is faulty, which eventually causes him to run down the line by himself. So Harold steps in to catch up and stop him from going too far. Thomas is stopped and the day is saved. There isn't anything outwardly special about this one, but take a closer look and you'll see Thomas is just put into a bunch of unfortunate incidents. He gets sick, and when he gets back, despite not being a little prick as one would expect, he still gets screwed over by his handbrake. You feel sympathy for him, and considering that this takes place in season 2, where Thomas is angry at something in a lot of episodes, that factor alone is pretty incredible. And here starts a pretty predictable trend. If it wasn't obvious, Henry is my favorite character. And this, despite being the episode I relate with him the most, is only number 9. I don't think Flying Kipper is really any worse than the other picks on this list. Quite the contrary. This episode is really nice. Henry starts out pretty positive, excited at the prospect of pulling the express if he does well with the Kipper. He starts his journey and everything is going great, paired with the amazing Flying Kipper theme. But things turn south quickly when a signal set to danger was forced to show all clear, leading Henry straight into a waiting train where he wrecks spectacularly. After the wreck, Henry is assured that it wasn't his fault and that he'll be rebuilt to have a larger firebox. Afterwards, he comes home and gets to pull the express. It's a wonderful story that wraps up Henry's arc of being sick and inferior throughout season 1. But what I enjoy the most is the parallel between Henry's journey and a lot of events in my own life. I've been through a lot of different issues and nasty situations, but at the end of all of them, I came out on top and grew into a better person each time. Even though we may get diverted and meet a big downfall, as long as we can get back up and learn from what happened, we'll become better people in the end. Ah, Fish. Another episode I have a lot of nostalgia for. Fish is, in my opinion, the best example of David Mitten's phenomenal camera work and direction for the classic series. We get everything from the engines facing away from the camera, to the low angles and moody lighting, to a pretty fun and memorable crash, and even Mike and Jr. pitch in with a very nice rendition of Henry's theme and the Night Train theme. In terms of the story itself, there isn't a lot that really stands out. It's a pretty good story about listening to others with experience and heeding warnings, but I still stand by it more for being a fantastic display of the true magic of the classic series. Fish is truly a star player in the classic lineup. Another Flying Kipper episode? Yep, after reviewing all my picks, all of the Flying Kipper episodes just sort of lumped together. Thomas collects some fish from up the coast to bring down for Henry's Flying Kipper. On the way back, he notices the track bed on the coastal run is washing away. He warns Henry about the danger, but Henry doesn't care and is more upset with Thomas for being late. Henry leaves as Thomas's driver is telling the signalman about the damaged track, but it's too late to stop him. The fog rolls in, and by the time Henry sees the danger, it's too late, and he plunges straight into the ocean. He's later craned out, and after being made fun of by Cranky, Thomas, who feels sorry for him, takes him to be washed down. Henry then apologizes to Thomas, and it's all good. What makes Something in the Air my favorite out of the 3 Kipper stories is the atmosphere and the relatability of the characters. Something season 5 does really well is the character interactions, and the conversations that everyone has with each other here feel so real, like the story actually happened. Another thing to note is Henry's danger theme, something that builds up the tension so well and is paid off beautifully with one of Henry's most intense crashes of the show. Thought we would finally escape the sea, I bet. Well, too bad. All Let's See is next, and what an episode it is. Another slower-paced story with no major action scenes. This story focuses on Duck and his fascination with the sea and what lies beyond. Duck and Percy are watching the regatta, and Duck wishes to travel beyond the horizon to faraway lands. Harold encourages his wishful thinking, and Duck eventually wears Percy out with his talk of the sea. Just then, a man is reported injured, and Duck is tasked with taking him to Bertie so he can get to the hospital. Bertie comments on how splendid Duck looks flying down the line, and Duck realizes that although he may dream of what's beyond the sea, his real home is where his friends are, and we get the second most tear-jerking ending to a Thomas episode ever. I love this episode because it's all about knowing your strengths and where you belong. As much as we wish we could go anywhere and make all our wildest dreams come true, you just can't beat being at home with your friends and family doing what you do best. One of Thomas's best messages by far. Down the Mine finally breaks us away from the sea. This episode is special to me because it's one my dad enjoys as well. For some context, my dad has always enjoyed Thomas because I love it, and there are episodes he likes of his own choosing. But what makes Down the Mine special to me is how much I see my relationship with my dad in it. Thomas is being cheeky to Gordon, teasing him for his recent accident. But it all catches up to him when he falls down a mine and Gordon has to come to his rescue. I think the parallels should be obvious. There have been countless times I've done something supremely stupid and my dad has come to my rescue. And although my dad and I tease each other a fair amount, we always stick together and we have each other's backs no matter what. This one means a lot to me, and it also means a lot to him. And who can say the ditchwater bit isn't funny?
It's ditchwater.
Now here's a pick I bet some of you didn't expect. Lady Hat's Birthday Party is an amazing episode about the journey a husband takes and all the hell and high water he faces just to get to his wife's birthday celebration. Say what you will about Sir Topham Hatt. Call him cruel, a dictator, an authoritarian ruler who scraps his engines and shuts them up in tunnels to die, all you want. All those criticisms crumble in the face of this endearing story about his determination and unbendable will to make it to the party for his wife no matter what. And although he's battered and bruised, new suit, ruined and ripped, covered in dirt and grime, his wife is still so happy to see him despite it all. It's a simple story with no real moral or major upfront takeaway. But to me, I believe Sir Topham Hatt leads a wonderful example of what a real relationship should be like. No matter what you go through, no matter how ugly it gets, no matter the difficulties you have to get through to be together, if you can make it to that party and she accepts you with open arms despite how messy the journey was, then it's true happiness together. And that's something I hope to achieve one day, making it through any situation, no matter how exhausted I am or how dirty I get, just to make it to my special someone's party and be greeted with a hug and a kiss. Anyways, back to the talking trains. At number 3 is my dad's favorite episode. The way he describes it, Thomas Percy and the Mail Train is a story about the two smallest engines doing one of the biggest and most important jobs on the island. And I totally understand that. Thomas and Percy are tasked with taking the mail train, delivering letters and parcels all across the island at night. But after an unfortunate delay, it seems Harold will be taking that job over. So Thomas and Percy work as hard as they can to keep their trains, and in the end, they do, being called the pride of the line. It's a wonderful episode with relatable characters and motives, and a realistic setting with nothing out of the ordinary for a railway. And of course, how can I not mention the incredible score by Mike and Jr., and the amazing nighttime aesthetic orchestrated by David Mitton and the crew. This episode is wonderful, and it's something I've always enjoyed sharing with my dad. While I definitely relate to the Flying Kipper the most for parallels between Henry and myself, Henry's Forest is my favorite Henry episode. This episode, once again, is a very slow and simple story. Henry enjoys being at the forest more than anywhere else. It's a special place where he can be at peace, away from the hustle and bustle of the other big engines and the industry of Sodor. But when a storm wreaks havoc on the forest, Henry's spirits fall and he becomes depressed. Toby is saddened by this and wishes to help Henry be happy again. He gets his chance when Sir Topham Hatt asks him to bring young new trees to be planted at the forest. Henry is amazed by this, and in time, the forest is restored to its former glory, and Henry is happy again. What this episode really encapsulates is the feeling of loss and how important it is to have friends who will support you no matter what. With the well-written emotional beats and another amazing score from Mike and Jr., one of their best hands down, to complement it.
Now, whenever Henry stops by the forest, he can see the new trees growing strong and tall. Sometimes everywhere is very quiet, and at other times Henry can hear leaves rustling or a bird's wing brushing the air. Often he can hear the distant sound of children laughing, and always he is happy here.
Before we get to the #1 pick, let's go over some honorable mentions that just didn't make the list. First is Bulldog, an episode with a good moral about compassion and a fantastic crash, but one I've grown out of over time. Next is Thomas Meets the Queen, with an amazing score and fun character interactions to boot. Then there's Cranky Bugs, a thrilling introduction to Series 5 with great characters and memorable moments galore. Moving on to James and the Trouble with Trees, a really nicely written story with good character moments, good music, and a very inspired and grounded concept. Lastly is Happy Ever After, one of the sweetest episodes of the show and a real feel-good story. All of these mentions are great episodes, but what do I consider to be my favorite episode of Thomas and Friends? No episode has really ever struck me quite as hard as Toby and the Flood. We see Toby in a concerned state as bad weather has caused the river to rise and the Great Dam in need of inspection. But as Toby checks it out, he finds the wall is leaking and the dam is about to break. As he goes back to the town to warn the villagers, the dam breaks apart and sweeps him away towards a waterfall. Percy and Harold swing into action, doing everything they can to save Toby before it's too late. Thankfully, they save him, and the villagers throw them a big party. In terms of story beats, the dark and gloomy atmosphere throughout the episode, paired with the incredible shot of the dam breaking and Toby being swept away, along with that insanely brilliant score by Mike and Jr. This episode has always been a list topper for me, and it just gets better with age. And there we have it, my top 10 list of Thomas episodes, at least as of 2025. I definitely think my list has gotten more diverse over the years, with several stories focused on their deeper meanings and what I take away from them. But of course, I still love the action and intensity certain episodes bring to the table as well. But this is just my personal list, and maybe yours is different. Let me know in the comments if you have any similar picks, or if your list is completely different. But for now, as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't be a stinker, and have a great day.